Listen, I don't want any more bullshit.
We back, baby. What's up? What's up? Let me welcome you back, because you know what? The season might be over, but we ain't over here. This is your man, Harkon Ajala, a.k.a. the bad boy genius at your motherfucking service. As always, I want to welcome you back to the one and only official, world's famous, bullshit-free Colts podcast. The only place online, anywhere in the world, where you can hear all things Colts, all things worth talking about, with no coach speak, no PR, no spin, no political correctness, and most importantly, and as always, no fucking bullshit. Now, what we're going to talk about today, the season is over, so this is going to be the first in the series that I promised you called How the Colts Can Win the Super Bowl in 2021. And today we're going to start with the most important position on the team, the most important position on the field when it comes to football, and that's the quarterback position. So before we go any further with any other questions, we got to start with the first one, the one that's been percolating all over this Indianapolis and anywhere else where there are Colts fans since the end of the season, and that is, should the Colts bring back Phillip Rivers as their starting quarterback next season? And now, if you're going to ask this question, and we're going to deep dive into this across 2 or 3 parts, because I need to say right up front, a lot of the conversation about Phillip Rivers this year, from the beginning of the season, from the day they signed him all the way through the end of it, has really been tainted, poisoned, and polluted with a whole lot of bullshit. And the reason why is because there's been a prevailing narrative that people have wanted to stay loyal to since the beginning of the season when the Colts signed him. And that's because, that's human nature. Human beings, once they state a position, especially publicly, they like to stick to it, and they look for evidence to prove their original statement or their original opinion true, as opposed to actually looking at the evidence and drawing their conclusion from there. So there's been a prevailing narrative about Phillip Rivers, which was he was done, he was trash, he was washed after his last season in Los Angeles with the Los Angeles Chargers, and that the Colts signing him was just a move that they made out of convenience because Jacoby Brissett obviously wasn't the answer, but he wasn't going to be able to take him anywhere. He was done. And because a lot of people held to that narrative, even people who didn't have any information otherwise, they heard that narrative, so they stuck with it. Because of that, what's really happened over the 2020 season, when you watch Phillip Rivers, what he actually did in terms of his performance on the field, has been tainted, overshadowed, and misconstrued. People have overlooked a lot of the truth and facts about what Phil has done on the season. And that truth is that Phillip Rivers played pretty fucking good over the 2020 season. But the real question, even when you set all of that aside, is, based on everything we've seen and all the information we have, should the Colts bring him back as a starter? That's what we're going to dive into. And as always, I'm going to give it to y'all straight and with no bullshit. And I'm going to give you the signal, not the noise. I talk to you guys about that all the time. So we're going to deep dive into that. Before we do, though, I want to make sure that I ask you to right now, if you haven't already, go down underneath this video or the podcast you're listening to and smash that fucking like button, because it will help us with the YouTube algorithm. The YouTube algorithm will share our video more when you guys press the like button, because then it knows that real people are interested in what we're giving and what we're putting out, and not bots. So smash that like button. Make sure that you share this video with any other serious Colts fans or even NFL fans that you think could benefit from listening to it and want to hear what we have to say. And also make sure you subscribe to the channel. And if you appreciate what we're doing, because, this shit takes more and more work and more time every week, because I want to give you guys what you really want. I want to give you something you can't get anywhere else. So if you appreciate what we're doing, please click the button below here and donate to us. $10, $20, $5, even $1. $1 helps us. It helps us to put more and more time and effort and energy into bringing you guys more content and the best content, which is what you asked for. So I appreciate that. Let's jump right into this. First off, when we talk about whether or not the Colts should bring back Phillip Rivers as their starting quarterback in 2021, that comes down really to two separate questions, okay? The first question is, can Phillip Rivers take your team to the Super Bowl and win it, right? Because that's the only goal we have every year, especially now. This is not a rebuilding Colts team. This is a fucking team that has talent, and they're built to win right now. So the goal, without a doubt, as you heard Frank Reich himself say after the season, is to get to the Super Bowl and win it. And after we win that one, to go back and win another one, okay? So it's all about winning a championship. So the first question is, can Phillip Rivers take the Colts to the Super Bowl and win? And the second question is, if you're not going to go with Phillip Rivers, can you actually get someone better than Phillip Rivers as your starting quarterback in 2021? You know, I hear a whole lot of talk about get rid of Rivers. Rivers is holding us back. We need to upgrade from Rivers. I hear a lot of that talk around here, but the question I always have is, okay, but where the fuck are you going to get a quarterback better than Rivers? A lot of people around here act like, you know, you can just go on Amazon Prime and put your fucking order in for an elite QB. That ain't how it works. If it was, there'd be plenty of teams that'd be putting that order in every year. You feel me? So the question really is, can we find a better quarterback to play for the Colts next year than Phillip Rivers? Now, we're going to take these in parts because there's a lot of information that we really need to kind of unpack in answering both of those questions. So let's start with that second one first, because I've got a lot of information for you in answering that first question that a lot of people aren't talking about. But I think the easiest one is the second one. Can you actually get someone better than Phillip Rivers? Because if we want a better quarterback, we're going to have to actually acquire him, right? So if we're going to get another starter, a new starter for Phillip Rivers, okay, it's got to come from really one of three places, right? Either they're already on the roster. That would be Jacob Eason, because we don't need to even consider Jacoby Brissett. And anybody that is, you know, on that, hey, how about Jacoby Brissett train, you may as well fucking just log off this podcast right now, because you got bigger problems if you can't see Jacoby Brissett is not the answer. I love the dude. He's a fantastic teammate and a great person, absolutely. But we've already seen 2 seasons of this dude. He's not good enough. He's a great backup quarterback for some teams, but he's not your starter, and he sure as fuck ain't taking you to no Super Bowl and winning it, all right? So if we're talking about somebody on the roster, we've got to be talking about Jacob Eason. It's either going to be him on the roster, you got to go get a quarterback in the draft. So actually there's 4 places. On the roster right now, in the draft, you can sign a free agent, or you can trade for a quarterback, right? Now here's the thing. Let's start with Jacob Eason. First off, I, like a lot of other people, would like to see what they have in Jacob Eason. Because there was no off-season, training camp, preseason this year, nobody outside of Colts camp has any idea what they have in Jacob Eason. And I don't think, from the sources I've spoken with, they don't really have a good idea either in Colts camp. They saw some stuff they liked, and that's why they picked him. You can best believe that Chris Ballard and his team would not waste a 4th-round pick on him if he wasn't the best prospect available at the time. Because, you know, you can get another fucking Kari Willis in the 4th round. You feel me? So you're not going to just throw that pick away. But they don't really know what they have. And here's the thing. This is why a lot of people say, well, go with Eason or draft one. I'm ruling those 2 out. Because while there might be a quarterback of the future in the draft that the Colts could acquire, maybe they have to move up, or maybe they just, you know, somebody falls to them at 21. Either way, a rookie is not going to be ready to step in. Any rookie outside of like an Andrew Luck level, okay, is not going to be ready to step in and lead this team to a Super Bowl win in 2021. And they are in 100% win now mode, okay? You got players on the team. You got a lot of talent that's in place, but, you know, they got decisions to make this year, and a lot of the the core of the talent, they're going to have to start re-signing. You may not be able to keep it all together. You with me? So they got a 3 to 5 year window they got to win. That starts this coming season. You got to have a quarterback in place that's experienced and proven. And that's why I don't think you're going to see the starter be Eason or come out of the draft for 2021. They may take a quarterback. They might, if there's one there that they absolutely love, they think is the quarterback of the future, they may do that. But the starter ain't going to be from one of those places in 2021. So then that leaves a couple of places, right? You either get a QB in free agency or you make a trade for one. All right, let's start with free agency. Remember, the QB they would bring in would have to be better than Phillip Rivers right now, okay? So here's the quarterbacks available in free agency. You got Dak Prescott, number one. Ding, 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 right? If he becomes available, sign the motherfucker. I'm 100% in. But you and I both know Dallas is not going to let him go. He's probably in the best position of any free agent quarterback of all time. Okay, then you got Ryan Fitzpatrick. Okay, we know what that is, right? He's a journeyman. You know, he looks good in 2 games and he looks ass in 2 games. No way. You got Jameis Winston. Okay, the Pro Football Focus guy that's on JMV's show every week, for some reason, is in love with fucking Jameis Winston. He keeps thinking that Jameis Winston is a possible starter replacement for Phil Rivers next year for the Colts. Bro, I mean, have you watched Jameis Winston anytime during his career? Now listen, physically, does he have the arm talent and all? Absolutely. All that's great. But, no. You're not going to just hand the keys of the franchise to him and say, hey, go win us a Super Bowl. When this guy was throwing 30 touchdowns and 5,100 yards last year and couldn't even get his team to the playoffs for the Buccaneers, was actually ended up being let go so they could bring in 43-year-old ass fossil Tom Brady. 30 touchdowns, but 30 interceptions ain't going to get it done. You know what I mean? That team had a top 5, if not top 3 defense. They had fucking weapons all over the place on offense. You know, wide receivers all over the place. I mean, come on. Now, as for Jameis Winston, he might be a good, like, I could see the Colts bringing him in as a backup. You sign him for a 1-year deal as a backup so you can get an up-close look at him. And then you can see, okay, let's see, can Reich fix him? You know, will he, you know, is there something you could do? But not for your starter. Then you got Cam Newton. We can just move on. Andy Dalton. We can just move on. Tyrod Taylor. We can just move on. Mitchell Trubisky. Any fucking body that even talks about this needs to be smacked in the face with a frying pan that's just been taken off the heat. I mean, I remember, you can look it up. I remember posting over and over that the Chicago Bears were absolutely fucking stupid to trade up in order to pick Mitchell fucking Trubisky. He had no resume, you know, and remember, they traded up and passed on Deshaun Watson and Patrick Mahomes. They moved up to number 2 in the draft to pick Mitchell Trubisky over Deshaun Watson and Patrick Mahomes. See, if I'm the team owner, your fucking ass is fired. The general manager, your fucking ass is fired. Okay? Immediately after that season, when I see what you got and what you passed up. So we don't need to talk about Mitchell Trubisky. All right? So my point to you is, of all those free agent quarterbacks that I just named off, which one's better than Rivers? Dak Prescott for sure, right? Mobile, great arm, hard competitor. I don't know about his personality exactly. Seems a little diva-ish, but, you know, he might be great. So in terms of actual potential and performance, you got Dak Prescott. But other than that, none of those people I just named off is even close to better than Phillip Rivers, okay? So that makes it real simple. It only leaves one other way to get a better quarterback than Phillip Rivers, and that's to make a trade. Now, that brings us to a lot of the talk and conversation that's going on throughout the season. There are three main categories or three main names that pop up and have been popping up throughout the season as possibilities to be traded for in order to replace Phillip Rivers, right? Matt Stafford up in Detroit, Carson Wentz in Philadelphia, Sam Darnold in the New York for the New York Jets. Now, of those three, I think Stafford is probably the most dependable of all of those. I'd say Matt Stafford is the one that you can objectively say that if you brought Matt Stafford in here, he would be an upgrade over Phillip Rivers. Okay, he has the arm talent. He's more mobile than Phillip, obviously. He's not what you would consider a mobile quarterback, a dual threat quarterback, so to speak. But he's certainly, he's decently mobile. Arm talent is off the charts. I don't know if he has that it factor to be a winner, but I do know he's had, terrible teams in one of the most terrible, embarrassing pro football franchises in the NFL up in Detroit all that time. So if you could make a trade that's where you're not having to give up too much, because remember, we're talking about Chris Ballard here, and any trade, you have to look at what do we have to give up to get the person. You could make a trade and bring Stafford in here. I would be all on with that, definitely. I think that's an upgrade. Nothing is guaranteed, but I think he's a definite upgrade to Phillip Rivers for next year because he's younger, still has the arm talent, etc. The second one would be Carson Wentz. Now, I watched Carson Wentz over this last season. He definitely looks broken, I have to say. But I will say this, that fall off that happened from the way he was playing in 2017 is, I think, probably the biggest one I've ever seen happen in a quarterback who's not like where age isn't a factor. Like Carson Wentz is plenty young. He's should be heading into his prime right now. The way he was playing in 2017, and I might add that Frank Reich was his offensive coordinator at that point, the way he was playing then, I mean, he was fantastic. He's 6'5", 237. He has a fantastic arm. He's actually surprisingly mobile and quick for a 6'5" guy. Fairly athletic, is very good at getting out of trouble with his legs. I saw him throw on the run. I would say, I have to admit, if that was a possibility and you didn't have to give up too much, I have to admit, with Frank Reich here and probably Nick Sirianni too, man, I have to say, it's hard for me not to think that Frank could return him to where he was in 2017. And if he could, we need to be clear here. The Colts would have an elite quarterback, and they would instantly become a Super Bowl contender, okay? Especially if they address a couple of areas for a couple other positions in the team on the offense, and we'll get into that in the videos upcoming, right? So if you didn't have to give up a whole lot for Carson Wentz, I don't know if I could pass on that opportunity. The thing is, since it seems to have been it seems like the gauntlet that was thrown down in Philadelphia is it was either going to be Wentz or Doug Peterson. And them firing Doug Peterson right after the season, a guy 3 years after he won a Super Bowl, kind of makes it obvious that they're choosing Carson Wentz. To me, that's what it looks like. We don't want to give up on Carson Wentz just yet, especially since, giving up and trading him, they would have to take a huge salary cap hit. It would be really a lot for them to give up. So it's kind of like, why do it unless you're 100% sure? Now, you might also say, because, if it becomes very clear Carson Wentz is trash, it's going to be harder to trade him. But still, I don't know. I don't know if I can really see the Eagles parting with Carson just yet. But if they would, I would highly look at it if I'm the Colts, if it doesn't cost me too much. Now, that leaves Sam Darnold. And again, there could be other people in play, but, Marcus Mariota and all those motherfuckers, forget it, okay? We're going to look at the ones that I think could be possibilities to be an upgrade over Phillip Rivers. Now, Sam Darnold, here's the thing. You can't really say that he's had any consistent stretch of play over the 2 or 3 years that he's been the Jets quarterback where you say, man, because of that, I feel confident he'd be an upgrade over Phillip Rivers. But, again, when you take a look at several things, Frank Reich, right? The quarterback's coach, Marcus Brady, the first-class organization that the Colts are, a media market and a fan base that are not just going to beat the living hell out of you for every, mistake you make. Then you got everything in Indianapolis that Darnold hasn't had in playing for the Jets, right? You got a fantastic offensive line. You got an outstanding running game. You've got really good tight ends to throw to. You've got what everybody says, and I have to admit, a genius-level play designer in Frank Reich, at least, if not completely consistently genius play caller. Frank has his moments, though, even calling plays. But his play design is outstanding. You can't disagree with that, really, if you understand football. And then you've got a really good defense that's on the verge of being full-out, full-stop elite. Okay? So, and then, again, you've got some weapons at wide receiver. If we get back Paris Campbell, without him, breaking his fucking clavicle and his spine at the same time in game one. If you get back Paris Campbell, and then you've got the guy I think's a star in the waiting, in Michael Pittman Jr., plus you got Nyheim Hines out of the backfield, you got the tight ends, and I think you're still going to have T.Y. Hilton back. This is everything Sam Darnold has never had playing for the New York Jets. And Darnold, I've seen him make some plays, like in terms of his arm talent. He's also very mobile. I've seen him make a few plays. If you could get him, get his head on straight and, not have all that pressure on him, give him a change of scenery and a supportive environment, he could be, because see, he's a person, since the Jets had that number 2 pick and they may be picking a quarterback, he's somebody that might not take a whole lot of draft capital, etc., to make a trade for. I think Darnold is the wild card and could be a steal if you don't have to give up too much for him. And so when you talk about, he could be better than Phillip Rivers. I would, if Phillip wants to play again, what could be really outstanding is Rivers starting and Sam Darnold as the backup in grooming. You feel me? So you're ready to go to Darnold after this coming season. If not during the middle of this coming season, but you get what I'm saying. So either way, when you consider everything, unless you can get a hold of Dak Prescott, somehow pry Matt Stafford, Carson Wentz, or maybe Sam Darnold away in a trade, unless you can get one of those 4, I don't see where you're going to get a better quarterback than Phillip Rivers for your team next year. So that's kind of the answer. You got to get one of those 4 or 5, or you're going to have to stay with Phillip Rivers if the answer to that first question is the right answer. And we're going to dive into that in part 2, where we're going to answer, is Phillip Rivers good enough to take you to a Super Bowl and win it? All right? Now, I know football, and I don't just pull this shit out of my ass. A lot of hours and analysis goes into this. But if you think I don't know what the fuck I'm talking about, and you think that you've got a better take on it, you think I'm off, let me know in the comments. You think I nailed it? Let me know in the comments. Either way, holler at your boy in the comments, and let's have a conversation. In the meantime, I want to thank you, as always, for being here, listening and watching. All the Colts players, coaches, front office people, if you're listening, because I know some of y'all do. I'm going to tell you what I always tell you. Let's go out and win another fucking Lombardi, baby. Peace. And win another fucking Lombardi, baby. And win another fucking Lombardi, baby. And win another fucking Lombardi, baby.